Hello and welcome to the New Book of Daniel podcast. My name is Daniel Bobinski, and I'll be your host on this adventure. There's been a lot in the news lately about all of the election fraud going on that's being exposed, thankfully. And I'm going to let you get your news on that from other sources. There's lots of great sources out there for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about COVID today, and I'm going to talk a little bit about mask mandates, especially the one that was instituted here in my town, Boise, Idaho. Let's start off with the COVID situation. You may or may not be thinking that this COVID thing is a scam, right? We hear all this news about people who are definitely dying from COVID, and yes, people are dying from COVID, but guess what? The Johns Hopkins University, the students have published a newsletter. It's the Students of Johns Hopkins newsletter. Basically, the COVID-19 death toll is misleading. Researchers have taken a look at the number of deaths from 2014 through 2020, so a 6-year time span, and found that there was no increase in the number of deaths in the United States. Not even when you broke down by age. You would think that with all the COVID deaths going on for people age 70 and over, that we'd see a big spike in the number of deaths of people age 70 and over. But they did a study and they find it's all tracking the same. In fact, I've got some graphs linked up, and I've got a link to this article over at the New Book of Daniel blog, which is just newbookofdaniel.com. I encourage you to go there. The article titled Johns Hopkins Study Suggests COVID-19 Death Toll is Misleading. I include some graphs on that where you can see what I'm talking about, and I explain it out, and of course there's a link to the article. But they even have this graph that shows the number of deaths by age bracket going back from the 1st of February, before COVID hit, to the first part of September, which would be after the big wave, right? The quote-unquote first wave of COVID infections and COVID deaths. There's no difference. The number of deaths by age bracket is the same. Go read this blog post. It's amazing. And you're going to start realizing, folks, we have been bamboozled. Or if you'd prefer a little more formal phrasing, we've been deceived by underhanded methods. We've been duped. We've been hoodwinked. I'll give you 3 guesses as to why. Anyways, my next piece that I want to talk about has to do with this mask mandate. Our lovely mayor in Boise, mclean, who is basically, for all intents and purposes, a Marxist, ran as a Democrat, claims that because the mayor's office is a nonpartisan seat, she didn't have to explain her positions. But everything that shows is definitely Marxist. She has got this mask mandate that she's instituted several days before Thanksgiving, which is curious given her first mandate was instituted on 4th of July. But she set up this snitch line that if you go into a business and you see people who aren't wearing masks, you can call the snitch line and report the business for not enforcing the mask mandate. And she has said that she will strip business licenses of businesses who don't enforce her mandate. If you ask me, this sounds a little bit like, Lenin or Stalin or, just we're snitching on each other now, right? Well, I've got some friends who have been calling the quote unquote snitch line, explaining that they're a little bit confused because the mandate has some exemptions. And what happens if someone goes into a store and they have a medical exemption, they can't wear a mask, and someone calls in and reports the business. So here's the business. If they're not letting someone who has a medical condition under which they can't wear a mask, if they're not letting that person shop, then the business itself is violating the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they're subject to, I think, a $92,000 fine for not complying. So where's the line, Mayor mclean? How are you supposed to compensate for all these laws and rules? I also, by the way, did a blog post where she has got her, what I call the Boise Manifesto. She has definitely got this thing going. She wants to, get this, she wants ongoing and robust efforts to interrupt the white dominant, white supremacist culture. Yes, yes. These are the people who elected her. In fact, we've got people, white people, some 80%, 90% of white people in Boise have elected Democrat mayors for the past 16 years. And somehow they're white supremacists. What does that tell you about Democrats and white supremacy? I'll just let you chew on that. Anyways, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving weekend. Today's Black Friday. Hopefully you saved a bunch of money by staying home and not shopping. We will talk with you, say Monday or so. This is Daniel Bobinski with the New Book of Daniel podcast. I thank you very much for listening. If you want to drop me an email, just send it to newbookofdaniel@outlook.com. Find me on all the social media platforms. Just search for New Book of Daniel. Read my political writings. Just go to uncoverdc.com or Red State. Search for my name. And of course, if you're watching this or listening to this on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We bump those numbers up, reach more people with some truth. This is Daniel Bobinski. I thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you on the next show. Until then, be blessed.